Peace. This will be a different video. It won't be a manifesting video. So for this video, I'm going to talk about the subconscious mind, and particularly for the title of this video, it'll be facing your traumas and not avoiding it. Basically, facing your traumas instead of running from it or avoiding it. And so the importance in that is basically when you face your trauma or the things that impact your subconscious, which is, one example would be trauma, right? The importance of being able to face your trauma right away, which is one of the impacts of your, which is one of the ways to impact your subconscious. The importance of facing your trauma head on. And I don't mean, when I say head on, facing your traumas, I don't mean anything deliberately extreme where you're confronting something or someone all up in their face and getting yourself all up in danger and stuff like that. No, what I mean is facing your trauma. What I mean by that is the importance of that is that you're not letting that experience or that experience, you're not allowing that experience or situation or circumstance or emotion or thought form to fester in your being and in your mind. You're actually facing it head on, and you're going to deal with it the moment it happens, or within that moment or that space of within that space of time that experience happened to you, instead of just suppressing it and not dealing with it and running away from it and avoiding it. The importance of dealing with it is you're getting to the root of it before it can even grow, because it has a root first, and once it's rooted, it'll grow more and more and more to where eventually it just becomes a part of your being, whether it's a negative thing or it's something you didn't like. I mean, obviously we're talking in the concept of negativity or dislike, because if it's a positive thing, why would I make a video if it's something positive, why would I make a video about it if it's not serving you, and if it's serving you good? This is obviously to initiate some sort of advice and a way to cultivate that help for yourself. So yeah, with the subconscious, what I've learned over time is it's important to face the trauma or the situation or the experience or the emotion right away, rather than to run from it or to avoid it, because by doing so, by facing it head on, by doing so, you're preventing it from festering and being rooted. You're preventing the seed of that emotion or experience from being rooted or being planted within your being, creating its roots and growing and becoming a part of you. You're kind of putting a stop to it right away. It's just and I learned from Brother Panic's video about because he does a lot of subconscious. He does so much videos on the subconscious, right? So much. And a lot of people do as well. So one thing I learned from him in his video is for you to face the trauma, like an example would be if you're riding on a horse and you fall off, one good thing you can do for you to prevent yourself from having a traumatized fear of horses or riding a horse is, as soon as you fall off the horse, you better get your ass back on the horse. So pretty much, instead of letting yourself be defeated by the experience or the negative emotion or the trauma that impacted your subconscious, instead of being defeated by it, you need to get back on that horse and try it again. You can't just, oh, okay, this negative thing happened, ouch, that hurt, I didn't like it, horses are bad, I'm staying away from horses from now on, I'm done with horse riding for the rest of my life. That was my first and last time doing it. So to get back on the horse is the way for you to face that trauma. And I could take that analogy with other sayings from my experience as well. It doesn't have to be that example. It could be like a couple of weeks ago I was baking cookies in the oven. And so when the cookies were done, I timed it on my alarm of when they were going to be ready. So by the time the cookies were done, I turned off the oven. I opened the little door thing, or the whatever. I opened the oven, and I took the cookies out, and I put my arm in there with the mitten on. And upon doing that, I actually burned myself. I burned my arm, and I was, that instant moment where you jerk your arm away because your body's just trying to protect itself. It's your instinctual ability, or it's your instinctive bodily reaction to protect yourself from danger when you flinch like that. So when I did that, I realized, oh shit. I actually really put some thought into it, and I thought, okay, I burned my arm a little bit. I kind of did. So I moved my arm like that. But I realized even that moment of like jerking my arm away like that, I actually thought about it, and I thought, okay, if I did that, took the cookies out, whatever, turned off the oven, I realized if I just stayed within that mode of emotion, of how it felt when I burned my arm, every time that I bake cookies or I make anything else in the oven now, I'm going to be thinking about that moment when I burned my arm. So what I literally did was, this is how I tried to face that trauma, right? The way I did it was, I took the opportunity to just, while the oven was still hot, I took this opportunity to just like put the cookies, like the cookie tray with the cookies on it. I literally put it back in the oven. I closed it, and then I opened it again, and then I put my arm through again, and carefully, like, of course you want to be smart and protect yourself. So I carefully put the cookies back in there. I closed the oven. I pretended as if I was just getting them out for the first time. So I opened the little door thing again. I opened the oven again. I stuck my arm in there with the mitten, and then I reached out for the cookies, and I took it out like slower, right? Slower, but actually no. I actually consciously decided to just get the cookies out of the oven almost in the same speed of manner that I took it from the first time. Like I just took it out normally, but I was more conscious of it. Like obviously I want to be safe, so I did it more carefully. But my point in all of this is, I did it a second time because I didn't want that trauma to stick with me, and for me to forever feel like every time I go make something in the oven, I'm gonna be scared to burn myself again. So I did it again, put the cookies back in the oven, closed the little door thing, opened the little door thing, put my arm back in there with the mitten, took the cookies out more carefully, and I didn't burn myself. And I did that repeatedly, actually, just a few more times, just to get it in myself, like, okay, Jaboy, you are not going to be afraid of some goddamn ovens. You're not going to be afraid to cook and to bake, and you're sure as hell not going to be afraid of getting a little burn. Like, you're not going to let this little experience here ruin all your career in baking cookies ever again. Like, that was just like a small example of how I didn't want that trauma to sink in deep within me and root itself and grow and become a part of me, to where every time I touch that oven, I'm going to be afraid because I'm going to keep thinking about that moment when I burned my arm. I had to prevent that, so I had to keep repeatedly doing it again, facing my fear, not letting it get to me, not letting it become a part of my subconscious. And so now, obviously I'm still going to live my life and bake and cook. So when I'm using that oven, I have no fear. That I never let that fear sink in. I didn't let that fear or that trauma or that moment dominate my experience, in a negative way. I dominated it with consciousness and awareness of not wanting to let that bother me. So yeah, I can touch that oven anytime. I'm not even bothered. I'm not afraid of it. And so that's just an example, guys, just like the other analogy from Brother Panic about falling off a horse, and to fight off that fear or that trauma, get back on it. And so I just wanted to say, yes, facing your traumas instead of running from it is important, because what you're doing is you're not allowing that fear or trauma or negative experience or emotion to dominate your feelings, to dominate your being. You're not letting it take up space in your mind or in your heart. You're not letting that shit take up rent. You're not letting that. You're not occupying that thing with inside of you, in your within your being, and let it take up rent. Like you gotta evict that shit and kick that shit out right away. And so this will just be kind of a short video. And yeah, I just wanted to drop this video real quick and just mention, you know, that's the importance of facing your traumas. And also, well, I don't want to cut it too short just yet. I kind of notice as soon as I'm ready to or I feel like I'm ready to cut the video, then I have other ideas that I want to add. So let me just add. And boy, I hope I'm not going too fast. I feel like I am. And so the other thing you can do is, if you already, and which we all do, we're human and things happen, life happens. But one thing I've also learned is the trauma that you've already experienced, that's already happened in the past. You can still fix those things. It's not the end. It's not the end of the world. Because when people tell you, the damage is done, it is what it is, it already happened, that doesn't necessarily have to be your mindset, because you still have the ability to change things, which is the power of your mind and your ability to travel back in time into your memories and your emotions and fix things. You can just face those old traumas and face them with the clarity and the clarity and the awareness that you have now, and still pluck those roots, those old roots that have been embedded within your being. And so, yeah, ultimately with this video, I'm just, covering the importance of facing your trauma, facing them head on so that they don't get rooted and they don't sink within you and root themselves within your being and grow and fester. Because the one thing people usually do when they experience negative things is their ego wants to protect them, so they run from it. They seek refuge. They want to protect themselves from the discomforting disheartening feeling or emotion, so they just run from it or they suppress it. And even though you may think that that's helping, it's not really helping in the long run, because you're actually making that little situation that could have been dealt with, you're prolonging it, and you're giving that damn thing a sequel, and it's just going to continue like a television series. It's never going to stop. It's going to keep happening. It's going to keep going. So what's important is you get to the root of it, or you face it head on right away, so that it doesn't even start growing from within you. Because think about it like this. When something happens to you, or some negative experience, or you may have, when something happens to you or a negative experience comes across your way, you do have a reaction to it, right? You have a very not fluster, I don't know if that's the right term, but you have a very strong, surprised, shocked emotion to it. When you have that emotion of being shocked and oh, what the fuck is this shit? Whoa, what the fuck was that? That in that moment, that's actually within that moment, that's actually your chance to get rid of that, or to face that trauma and get rid of it for good and not let it fester. That moment where you're shocked, what? Did he really just say that? Did that really just happen? Did that dude just get ran over? Oh shit. Or did that thing just happen in front of my eyes? Did that thing happen, or that, or the other, whatever it may be? Did this person really just cross the street and almost got hit by a car, and that car ended up hitting that other car, and there's just this whole accident that happened in front of me? That moment when you're shocked, that's your chance to, or seeing a fight break out in front of you and you're just kind of in shock. Instead of just these traumatic experiences or situations, right? That moment where you're shocked from that experience that you're seeing, that's your chance to that's your chance to protect yourself from that trauma and not let it sink in within you. You're not letting that shit sink deep. Just deal with it in that moment. Process it, acknowledge it, process it, deal with it however you can, and then just like let it be and then move on. And then think about it every so often in your mind. Just revisit it, because sometimes it's still in your mind. So revisit those thoughts and then just move on with it. Learn from it. Like, okay, well, that thing happened. That was fucked up, but shit, life happens, and hopefully I'm not, hopefully it didn't affect you, right? But like, let's just say it was something outside of you, for an example. Like, okay, that thing happened. It was fucked up. Holy shit. Well, I'm glad it wasn't me. Shit happens. Life happens. Let's just move on. And in a way, you've officially dealt with you could say you've pretty much dealt with your trauma right there. Because instead of letting it sink deep, you cut that seed before it dropped and made its roots within you. You kind of like, you caught it right away. You caught the bullshit with like a baseball mitt and you threw that shit back. Return to sender, motherfucker. You know what I mean? Return that shit to sender. You don't need that. And so yeah, with that being said, facing your trauma instead of avoiding it, and why it's important, because oftentimes when you run from something and you just close your eyes to it and you avoid it, you're actually letting it sink in already. You're letting it sink, and you're letting it fester, and you're letting it become a part of your being. It like latches onto your spirit and your soul and in your mind, and it festers on, and then it just becomes a part of your being. Even with people that you have conflicts with, you have fights with, like, even though the saying, like, it's just like what parents and teachers and adults often tell, like, the kids that they take care of. They often tell those kids, okay, how does that make you feel? That kid was being mean to you. Go back to that kid. Go confront that kid. Tell him that you didn't like what he did to you. Tell him how it made you feel. Go tell him you're sorry and all that stuff. Like, basically, you know how when adults often will guide kids into that idea of, okay, something happened that you didn't like. Something happened to you that you didn't like. Okay, I need you to just go deal with it now. Be mature, be nice. Express how you feel. Be nice, right? Like, be nice, express how you feel, and deal with it. Don't run from it. Go confront that fear of yours. Let's deal with it. Let's talk about it. Like, that's actually a good thing. That's a good sense of guidance for kids and for anyone in general, because you're getting to the root of that trauma right away and you're facing it instead of letting it grow within you and just dwell and fester. So yeah, that's the importance of facing your trauma instead of avoiding it and not running from it, is that you give yourself that chance to get to the root of it immediately, or before it even becomes rooted, you give yourself like a chance to catch that seed instead of letting it grow in your soil, I guess, if you want to say, like, you're a plant, and letting it grow. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. And it's just like, even like that example that I was just giving out about like trauma, or seeing certain traumatic things happen, like a fight breaking out. You know how that can traumatize people, especially like fights anywhere, school fights in public, at the store, in the street. Usually the people who just watch it and are shocked, more than likely, they're the ones that are programming their subconscious for more negativity and violence and more trauma, like that, like what they just saw, to occur more in their reality. Whereas like the people who kind of go up to the two people fighting and try to break it up, they're the real courageous ones. They're courageous, I would say, in two ways. One, because they're not afraid to get down and dirty. They're not afraid to get roughed up a little bit. They're not afraid to get their hands on some people. That's why they're brave, because they're not afraid to step up, get physical, get their hands dirty, and break up a fight. And for two, the second reason why I feel like they're brave is because, like, little do they realize they're actually protecting themselves from having that subconscious trauma. Like, instead of just sitting there and watching the fight happen and break out and be traumatized about the beating, they're actually going up and confronting the fear, or they're confronting the negative or the trauma, the traumatic situation. They're confronting the traumatic situation instead of just watching it in awe and being shocked and letting it just dwell up in them and let it be a part of their memory forever. Like, they're actually breaking up the fight. Like, they're getting to the root of that issue. And that's exactly the point I'm trying to make in this video right now, is you need to get to the root of your trauma, or face the trauma, I mean to say, and deal with it at that moment. And instead of running from it and letting it be a part of your being, you just gotta face that shit. And yeah, with that being said, I hope you guys got some jewels from what I dropped here, picking up the jewels. And so with that being said, peace.